So I don't know who out there needs to hear this today, but listen up. There are people to this very day that are still mad at you. Why? Because they failed at destroying you. Hey!
Maybe you know about the heinous history of Lake Lanier in Georgia or the truth behind New York Central Park. Perhaps you're familiar with the Tulsa Race Massacre, but do you know about the predominantly black town buried under Lake Martin in Alabama? Lake Martin, located in Tallapoosa, Elmore, and Coosa counties in Alabama, spans 41,000 acres. And underneath it lies the once thriving black town of Benson. The tragedy of Benson begins with John Jackson Benson. He was born an enslaved man and he worked hard and earned his freedom. He not only earned his freedom, but he also saved up his money by working in coal mines to purchase land from his former enslaver. Benson's ambitions didn't stop there. By 1898, this man owned 3,000 acres of land. Benson was a thriving town where both black and white people were given opportunities to advance their stations in life. This town had a cotton gin, a sawmill, a compression mill, and ultimately had one of America's most established academic institutions for black youth, the Kalijah Academic and Industrial Institute, founded by Benson's son, William, a graduate of Howard University. Benson, Alabama was a beacon of light for black people less than one generation out of enslavement. And although Benson welcomed white citizens who were not economically mobile, the town was oftentimes a target of hateful, race-motivated acts of domestic terrorism. And in 1923, the Alabama legislature found a way to finally put an end to this thriving metropolis of black excellence. It was the building of Alabama Power, where they annexed the land and flooded out Benson. It wasn't just predominantly black Benson, it was also Kalijah, it was also a town called Susana, and it was also a number of sacred indigenous lands, all washed away so that Lake Martin could stand.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz, and this is Monday Mayhem. A lot has happened over the weekend. We covered a whole lot last night, but you know, the tea keeps getting poured. I'm going to keep spilling it, and you're going to keep sipping it. So let's get into this political tea. Let's start off with the announcement that rocked the United States in a positive way, because we all need a little bit of good news. Debret, you know, the Bret-a-tat-tat, is 5 months preggers. Now let's see how her Dish Nation fam took the news.
Up, everybody. Now, the Brat is back in the building, and we got to talk about the big news that was rocking the world this week. The Dish family is growing because the Brat is expected. Yay! Congratulations.
They
Thank you.
I feel like the best and worst friend ever. You sit next to me every day. I had no idea. Like, it was literally right under my nose. However, I was shocked when I saw the reveal on the Sherry show the other day because, I mean, like, damn, we spent so much time with you in the room. And we were all in here talking about, like, well, you know, she was talking about she feels really emotional and her feet hurt and all that other stuff. And, like, all of the signs were there.
I don't know what y'all didn't get.
But you turned up on Sherry, though.
And did.
Yeah, I did. And I was just with you.
Yeah, like the
Saturday.
Saturday before,
Yeah.
big blast off of the kaleidoscope. People, the product was flying off the shelf. How did you manage to keep it a secret? Like, even with the photo shoot, like, did you murder the photographer after he gave you the negatives? Like, I mean, how did this secret stop
It was
the world?
Derek Blanks, and he's awesome at keeping a secret.
Yep.
And you know, he did all the pictures and everything for us. And I mean, I'm buying 3 extra big now. Like that helps me hide it. But I wear big clothes anyway, you know. And I've been sucking in, so I got to stop sucking in.
Oh,
It's
you
like,
can't
stop
suck in
sucking
no more, baby.
I mean, yes.
What did your mama say?
Oh my God, my mom is ecstatic. She is so excited. She's ready to move to Atlanta yesterday.
I know she is, honey.
Well, not really. I want her to. I'm trying to make her move to Atlanta. But she wants to be there every second. And everybody is so excited and wants to be there, and I'm just very happy about
so
that.
great.
Like, it is amazing.
Since you're gonna be a mama soon, honey, we gotta make sure that you can change a diaper.
Yay!
Yes, honey. So let's just practice, honey, with my little child.
I don't know how to do that.
You
yet.
don't?
Oh,
good.
you're going to have to get sharp, really.
We're gonna
Yeah.
practice
You're going to
with
get practice.
little Leroy, y'all know. We're gonna change him and make sure, honey, that his little thing, honey, is clear and secure, Brad. So pass the Leroy.
Oh, look at Leroy.
Support the neck. Gotta support the neck.
Oh, yeah, honey, the neck, honey. Yes.
Okay, but Brett, have you held a lot of babies before in your life? No?
Well, you
Oh,
put it
my
down
God.
now.
This is going to be fun.
If y'all lean in together, this will make
Okay.
a great photo op.
Well, grab the Leroy, Brett.
Really want to shock the world.
What you want me to do?
Okay, so listen. So you got 10 seconds on the clock to change the diaper. All right? We just want to see your best work. We want to see how we can help you.
Ain't this
what you
supposed
need
to come
help in.
open, though?
Well, we just put it all over Leroy.
They
We'll
just
open
put it
it.
over.
Yeah, we can't afford the
For
blur.
TV
Yeah.
time.
Okay, ready? Let's start the clock at 10. Let's go.
10, 9, 8.
Oh, that's backwards.
Oh, you want to
5, 3, 2.
Oh, man, you got peed
Oh,
on.
poor Leroy.
It's okay.
You got time, baby.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got a little time.
They gonna send that baby home with a note.
Yeah. I will be calling all you.
Oh, and you better. And we can't wait to become dish aunties and uncles. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh, what a
Thank
miracle.
y'all
I'm
so much.
excited
Yeah.
for you.
Thank y'all so much. Thank God. Thank y'all so much.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy for Debrat. She's she's so adorable. She's oh my goodness, so adorable. Now, y'all, you know, King Chucky's coronation is coming up. Now he wanted Adele. She said, I'm booked busy. He wanted Sir Elton John. He said, I'm booked and busy. He wanted the Spice Girls. They just said, wanted Ed Sheeran, booked and busy. Everybody. So he has a lineup. But baby, that's not even the biggest story. Okay. Queen Cam is like, this is my time to shine. I've waited. Y'all take a look at this. I'll see you in 2 and 2. You know how we do.
We need to comment on Camilla's absurd and controversial decision that became the most discussed topic yesterday throughout the United Kingdom. If you're not aware yet, Camilla wants to be the center of attention at King Charles's coronation. She wants her 5 teenage grandchildren to occupy the center stage at the coronation alongside Charles' royal heirs. To further fuel the controversy, a royal source assured the Times that Camilla wants her 5 grandchildren to hold a canopy over her as she is anointed with sacred oil, a role traditionally performed by the duchesses and considered one of the most sacred parts of the ceremony. It's a significant decision given the fact that Camilla's grandchildren have been largely shielded from the limelight over the years. Someone please inform Camilla that the coronation is an official occasion and not a family gathering. They have absolutely nothing to do with the royal family, and I doubt Charles' grandchildren will mix with them. Despite Camilla's controversial past and being called an adulterer for decades, she's not a bad person, but she needs to let Charles take the spotlight. He's the king. What's your opinion on this? Please like the video and follow our profile.
Well, hello and happy Monday. I have some brief updates regarding the coronation. I myself, as well as other content creators or royal content creators on here, get asked the pivotal question day in and day out. Week in and week out, month after month. Are Harry and Meghan going to the coronation? Before I answer that question, let's talk about some specific details in regards to the actual coronation. We do know worldwide acts such as the Spice Girls, Elton John, Ed Sheeran, Harry Styles, and Adele have all turned down the request to perform at His Majesty's coronation in May. Most of these acts are actually on tour. Of course, the Spice Girls are not on tour. I move on. There has been confirmation that 3 acts such as the group Take That, Lionel Richie and Ollie Murs, who... I've never heard of Take That nor Ollie Murs, and Lionel Richie is sort of random, but at this point, a check is a check. Actually, I don't think they get paid to perform at the coronation. So this is what we're rolling with right now. It has also been noted that the Queen Consort will eventually be dropping the consort from her title and to be known as the Queen. I already have a video up in regards to this and the explanation between Queen Consort and Queen. For those who choose not to go look, Queen is the title. Consort is the description, meaning she is the wife of the king. Queen Consort is not an actual title. It does help to differentiate between Queen Elizabeth, who reigned in her own right, and Queen Camilla, who is the wife of the king. She is, in fact, legally the queen, whether you like it or want to accept it or not. I move on. We have also received news that the grandchildren of the Queen Camilla, yes, get used to it, will take a prominent role within the coronation. It is alleged that the grandchildren will hold the canopy over the queen as she is anointed with holy oil during the coronation ceremony. It is the most sacred of parts of the coronation. I'm assuming more details to come on that, so I move on. The burning question everyone is wanting to know, will Harry and Meghan attend the coronation? We don't know. We really don't know, honestly. As myself and as I mentioned, other royal content creators on here are asked this question day in and day out. When you all know, we will know. Until then, no idea, honestly. An invitation has gone out, an RSVP has not been received. That was simple enough to answer, right? So, thanks for watching. Bye.
Now keep in mind, King Chucky's coronation is the same day as Meghan and Harry's oldest son. Shady boots. Shady boots. Word on the street is that King Chucky is a lot closer to Camilla's grandchildren than his children or even his own grandchildren. He evidently spent a lot of time at their homes while her children were growing up and as they were raising their children. And he would get on the floor and play with them. Awkward. But I don't know how this falls into tradition because her children and grandchildren aren't royal. So it's like if they are allowed to participate in this coronation, especially during the most sacred part, wouldn't that mean you would have to give Harry and Meghan's children titles, Chucky? I'm just saying. Well, moving it back over on this side of the pond, Trump is at it again, campaigning via video, via Truth Social. And it's looking like he wants to reinstate stop and frisk, but nationwide this time. Don't believe me? Just watch.
I will insist that local jurisdictions return to proven common sense policing measures, such as stop and frisk.
So Trump will require stop and frisk. Stop and frisk, which has been widely analyzed as a disaster when it was used in New York City and in other places. Trump says, not only do I recommend, I will require stop and frisk. Wow.
Very simple. You stop them and you frisk them.
Yeah, very simple. I mean, first, you racially profile them. You determine their shade. And if they're the shade to be stopped and frisked, go right ahead. I mean, because it worked out so great in NYC. Keep in mind, this is the same man who took out a full-page ad to have 6 Black teenagers receive the death penalty. They didn't. I know that you all know them as the Central Park 5, but there were actually 6 of them. There were 6. But let's touch on something a little bit more lighthearted when it comes to Trump. Because we're going to need a lot of lightheartedness as DeSantis is amping up his campaigning. We can't officially call it that yet, ahead of him throwing his hat into the 2024 presidential ring. But you all remember the original Apprentice, right? You know, they were bippity boppity booping all around New York City and convincing a lot of business owners to let them film there. Take a look at this interesting story, especially since it involves Trump water. You know, 13-year-old water that he just recently took to East Palestine, Ohio.
I never thought in a million years that Trump water would be trending again, and I have the opportunity to tell this story. It's hilarious. So, as you guys know, I'm from New York City, been here my whole life. My dad owns a pretty famous restaurant in Manhattan, and he's been there for over 40 years. And when season 1 of The Apprentice happened, the original Apprentice happened, you know, it became this huge hit. And they were picked up again for season 2. So the producers of the show were scouting businesses and stuff like that to film the challenges that Trump would have on his show, all geared around his like corny, shitty merchandise, whatever he was peddling that year. And they called my dad's restaurant to see if they could film there. Now, a lot of places have filmed at my dad's place, and they usually pay him for doing so. They don't ever show like the front of the store or the store's name. It's just like indoor shots. But when the producers of The Apprentice called, they said, listen, we're not going to give you any money, but it's great exposure. We'll say the name of the restaurant. We'll, you know, show the front of the store. This show is a big hit. Like, you should do it. And so my dad did. So the 2 teams set out to sell Trump water. And it was like the competition was who can sell the most Trump water. And my dad wound up buying like 6 cases of that shit. 7 cases. Now, this was all obviously pre-Trump politician era. So my dad didn't mind buying the cases of water. And obviously it was an opportunity to be on this show. So they wrap up the scene, done, you know, they bring the 7 cases of Trump water. And season 2 of The Apprentice begins. We watched every single episode. My dad's scene never made it. Yo, my dad was so pissed. Not only did he let them film in the store for free, but with his own money he paid for all this fucking shitty water. I'm not saying that's Donald Trump's fault, obviously. But like Trump water becoming relevant again is kind of like giving me and my dad PTSD. But in true entrepreneurial fashion, My dad was like selling them for like $5 a bottle to tourists who wanted to buy them. And it was the one with the red label, the Trump Ice. Oh my God, the flashbacks. So yeah, there's a little fun fact about Trump water. Anyways, bye.
So once again, we see that the only way that Trump can turn a profit is if he's grifting. So he already had it in motion how he was going to make the White House profitable for him because he made a television show profitable for himself in more than one way. Instead of getting, actual sponsorship deals or branding, he conned people. Who would have thunk it? As always, make sure you check out the links in the description of this video and make sure you're subscribed to this channel and make sure you click the bell so that you're updated with every video. Don't forget tomorrow, the first in the series of the Black History of the White House will begin. We are going to mix it up a little bit. The first episode, the first book club will be on YouTube. Each subsequent one will be on Patreon. Sorry, but these books and supplies are not cheap. And your girl does take a buttload of notes and does a lot of research in order to bring you the information. So it will not be expensive, but gotta do something. Now, on Broadway, there's a premiere of Parade the Musical. Now, I am very well versed in this story. It is rooted in the United States tradition of racism, bigotry, and murder. But this Broadway production was met with New Age Nazis protesting and keeping up a long disproven lie. Sound familiar? It should. Let's hear the story of Leo Frank.
You might be wondering why there were Nazis protesting outside of the very first preview of the Broadway musical Parade. Parade the Musical is a dramatization of the 1913 trial and prosecution and 1915 killing of Jewish American Leo Frank. Hello, my name is Caroline, and this is my series Broadway Deep Dives. Before we dive in, I want to stress that it has been widely accepted that Leo was wrongfully convicted. And the protest happening outside of Parade the Musical's theater the other night only reinforces the fact that Leo's story needs to be told. Leo was born in 1884 to a Jewish American family in Texas, and he was raised in New York. Frank earned a degree in mechanical engineering from Cornell University and in 1908, after graduating, moved to Atlanta, Georgia. There he became the director of the National Pencil Factory. By 1910, Frank got married and threw himself into the local Jewish community in Atlanta and was even elected president of a Jewish fraternity in Atlanta. It was during this time that there were growing concerns about child labor in factories around the United States. For context, during the late 1800s, child labor was very common, and this was a direct result of the Industrial Revolution. In fact, 1 in 5 children were employed. And this was relevant to Frank because children worked in the pencil factory that he directed. One of those children was 13-year-old Mary Fagan. On April 20th, 1913, Mary was laid off from her job at the pencil factory due to material shortages. And 6 days later, on April 26th, Mary went to the factory to pick up her last paycheck and never went back out. Early the next morning, shortly before 3 a.m., the factory's night watchman, Newt Lee, went to the factory's basement to use the bathroom, and after leaving the bathroom, that is where he discovered Mary, who had been strangled. Next to Mary were 2 notes, which were made to look as if she had written them. One of the notes mentioned a night switch, which led police to make their first arrest of Newt Lee. Over the course of their investigations, police arrested several men for Mary's death, including the factory's janitor, Jim Conley. But in 1913, it was Frank who was charged and found guilty for the murder of Mary. There's more to the story, so follow along for part 2.
And Leah was the superintendent of said factory. There were rumors swarming around that he was essentially having an affair in his office with a woman. The timelines did not match up, and they boiled it down to the testimony that convicted him was from an accomplice. There were several appeals, and they were like, you can't really give him the death sentence because of an accomplice. But ultimately, racism prevailed. And due to anti-Semitism, he was lynched. There are greater details, but those are the cliff notes. Now, many people to this day wonder why a lot of us scream ACAB, all cops are bastards, and why we're pushing to defund the police. Before you all get your panties in a bunch again, let me once again remind you, the police department has been previously defunded. It did so because once upon a time, if you had a medical emergency, guess who showed up? You're right, the cops. How did that make sense to people? Who the hell knows, okay? But it did. And once again, they got this idea because Black people were doing it for themselves, and they were like, we should steal this from them. And that's how you got EMTs, paramedics, etc. But have you noticed that as we are gaining more access to body cam footage and swifter public access to body cam footage, we're noticing that officers are immediately telling people to take their hands out of their pockets, and we can clearly see they don't have their hands in their pockets. We hear officers tell people to not resist, and we can clearly see that they're not resisting. We hear all of these things. Let's get into why we're hearing things that contradict what we see. And before you go, but Taz, that's not a part of police training, is it?
Watch what happens when you question what is taught in police training.
Katie Sponsler spent 11 years in the Air Force and 5 years as a law enforcement ranger with the National Park Service, where she attended her third police academy at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia. This weekend, she tweeted some of what she learned in that training, like how she was told to yell, "Stop resisting," and drop your weapon after firing a gun, because bystanders will remember that you said it, and their memory will automatically reverse the order of events. She also noted that she was told that de-escalation techniques will get me and other officers killed. And as a smaller law enforcement officer, I was justified escalating my use of force faster than my colleagues because I was always in danger, so I should use it. She lost her job after questioning that training.
Did you catch that? They're already setting up defenses. Why do you think they fight so hard for body camera footage to be released? Why do you think certain districts have top-notch PR firms on retainer? Why do you think so many officers claim that their body cams malfunction or their cruiser cams malfunction? If you saw the footage from the murder of Tyre Nichols, you saw this happen in 4K. Where they're screaming at him to put his arms down, not to resist, and they had him pinned to the ground. Just in case anyone saw, they had their I's dotted and their T's crossed. On top of their qualified immunity. Once again, it is time to eliminate qualified immunity and have police officers carry insurance. And should they injure someone or take someone's life, those funds should come out of their pension, not the taxpayers' pockets. We didn't commit the crime. Now, before we go any further, you know what time it is. Let's get into this Black History Month ad. I'll see you in 2 and 2. You know how we do.
Black people stand up, feel good. Be proud of yourself as you should. And if you darker than the brown paper bag, wave your fists in the air. Time to make these haters mad. They treat us like we came from the sewer. And everything we do, they try to outdo us. We made the traffic light, they write tickets. I ain't got to tell them, they already know where to stick it. We made the subway, they got scepter. Now everybody eating off of that except us. One thing we known for is our bravery, and Paul Kufi was an entrepreneur during slavery. You wonder why we like t-shirts that's white? Maybe because we used to pick cotton in another life. For Granville Woods and Maggie Lena Walker, put your lighters in the air now and spark up. One of the things that they never made clear why Black History.
I was purposely waiting for today because it is the 55th year anniversary of when Frankie Lyman passed away due to a dose over of urine hair. Get it? So back in the 1950s, Frankie Lyman, this little boy in the middle of this photo, was in a group with these other little boys that are a little bit older than him called the Teenagers. And they were popping for maybe a year and a half. And you pretty much know how it goes. There's a lead singer in a group, lead singer tries to go solo, lead singer doesn't see as much success, the group tries to replace him, they're also not as successful, rinse and repeat. So when Frankie met this young lady, Zola Taylor, who was a part of the Four Platters in a Dish, it was 1956. She was 17, he was 14. And one night on the road, she had been drinking a little bit too much, and that was the first time they started having relations. But I just told you how old they were. Frankie moves in with Zola. Zola has a house in the hills, has a pool. She's doing quite well for herself. She's probably barely an adult at this point, if at all. Frankie is still very much a teenager, aka a little boy. And they do go to Tijuana and get married. But this is not Zola's first wedding. It's her second. It's also Frankie's second marriage. So around the time that he's living with Zola, he meets a woman named Elizabeth Waters, and then they start living together in Philly, and they got married at City Hall in Virginia in 1964. But then in 1967, he marries a school teacher in Augusta, Georgia named Amira Eagle. Okay, so 3 wives right now. A wife in Georgia, a wife in Philly, and a wife in Cali. Throughout his career, he was actually down bad on the arm candy, if you get my drift. He'd have bouts where he was clean, but ended up passing away when he was 25 years old because, like I said, he dosed over. So because Diana Ross in 1981 had covered his song and it was charting, the widows were like, where is my money? I want my royalties. So then they go to the guy that basically retained and held the Frankie Lyman like copyrights and royalties and stuff like that. They go to him and they're like, okay, check, please, please. And then that opens up this whole new can of worms of, hold the F up. Why are there 3 of you? Now you got 3 grown big age women claiming to be the widow of this little boy. Now you got 3 women trying to defend a dysfunctional marriage. So then Elizabeth was like, actually, we got married in 1964, which was before all of y'all. But then they were like, but technically you were still married to the guy you married at 16. And that divorce wasn't finalized until 65. But because you were in Philly, there was common law marriages. So I guess you were married. So Zola was like, well, we got married in Tijuana, and then they came back and was like, we actually couldn't find no court records of that, so I don't really know. Plus, you said you got divorced, and we can't find no paperwork from that either, so I don't know what to tell you. So his third wife, Amira, was like, yep, we were definitely married, and I have the receipts to prove it. So Ultimately, the court decided in the favor of the first wife, Elizabeth Waters. However, the third wife, Amira Eagle, appealed and won. Okay? So at the time of this trial, that record had maybe amassed to like 750,000 or 1 million in sales. She had to split it, but she went out. I think the story was so wild to me for 3 reasons. Like, 1, why didn't nobody check for the royalties beforehand? 2, Zola and Frankie looked like they could be sister and brother. And 3, he was a full child, like, while the majority of this happened. Like, nobody had a problem with that? I can't wait to read what y'all have to say about this because this was a mess, okay? You already know what I'm about to say. Don't forget to come back tomorrow and follow for more because it is the last day of Black History Month and we're going out with a bang. Got any guesses? See you tomorrow.
Now, let's add a little bit to this Frankie Lyman debacle because I know a lot of people saw the motion picture, Why Do Fools Fall in Love? And yes, that was the song that the illustrious Diana Ross did cover. Now, coming from sfgate.com, The Fast Life of Frankie Lyman, a Fool for Love at Just 14. The way 50 singer Frankie Lyman is presented in Why Do Fools Fall in Love is mostly true. We played down certain things and fudged others to make it work as a film, said director Gregory Nava about the $25 million biopic that opened. This article is from 1998. The singer-songwriter, played by Lorenz Tate, died at 26 from a drug overdose in 1968. He was just shy of his birthday, so it's technically 25. As the film shows, there was a trial nearly 2 decades later to determine which of his 3 widows, played by Halle Berry, Vivica A. Fox, and Lela Rochon, had the rights to his songs. What isn't clear in the movie was just how young Lyman, a mere 13, when he broke ground with the doo-wop classic Why Do Fools Fall in Love, was when he was 3-timing these women. We had to fudge a little on the age situation that might have been construed as a problem by audiences, Nava acknowledged. You think? Lyman was 14 years old when he began to date Zola Taylor Berry, lead singer of the chart-topping group The Platters, in the mid-1950s. And he was still just a kid when he started on the next wife, Elizabeth Waters, said Nava. Frankie wasn't much older either when he met the third Mrs. Lima, Amira Eagle. All these women were 18 or 19 older than him when he turned his charms on them. And before y'all go, because it was a different time. We're all their parents. They're still my, anywho. In the film, Tate, who is 25, is portrayed as a mature-looking teenager, far from 13 in appearance and demeanor. It's only at the end that viewers get a glimpse of the real Lyman in black and white concert footage. It's obvious he's just a boy. At 13, the pint-sized Lyman and his singing group, the Teenagers, got a record contract. But they turned out to be a flash in the pan that had tanked by the 1960s because of division in the group and Lyman's drug addiction. Looking at Frankie Lyman from the distance of so many years, we were primarily interested in catching the spirit of the times and focusing more on the later and very entertaining story of his wives, Nava said. It wasn't that much later. Keep in mind, he died in his mid-20s. The wives, never quite divorced from Lyman, never quite married either, took their claims of copyrights for Lyman's songs to federal court in New York in 1986. The film shifts back and forth in time to look at their relationships with the singer. Nobody was sure who the real Frankie Lyman was, Nava said, and he wasn't around that long, even though he was a tremendous influence later on everybody from the Jacksons to Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, and Diana Ross. There wasn't much interest in making a film about Lyman that was going to be just another biopic about a promising musician who burns out on drugs. It wasn't until the court case involving his wives cropped up that the film's producers got interested. I just bet. This is the ultimate catch me if you can. Okay. And how was he living? Never mind. Fox has been singled out for her performance as Lyman's second wife, a petty thief turned to prostitution to help Lyman finance his drug habit. I'd say, you know what? You know, some of these men are just, I guess they're just born with mouthpiece, because there is not enough game, there's not enough sweet talking on this planet that would get me to become a hooker for somebody's I'm gratified people like my performance, she said, because I worked my rear end off to get it right. Part of the work was putting on all the makeup so all the wives looked 30 years older for the court scenes. It took 3 hours just for makeup and hair. Everyone connected with the film, including Warner Brothers, was disappointed that the movie didn't fare better in its opening weekend. It grossed a meager $3.9 million, putting it in 5th place. Well, we taught Black history better, especially in music class. It would have done better. I think it deserved better, Fox said. Now they held out hope that interest would build with the release of 2 soundtrack recordings from the movie. One on Rhino, co-produced of the film, features original music by Lyman and the Teenagers, the Platters, Little Richard, and Clyde McFadden. The other, from Elektra, has music from the later years covered in the film's 30-year scope, including updates of the title song. The entertainment industry has no problem with sexualizing children. And everybody's worried about drag queens and the alphabet mafia. Okay. Now, switching gears, if y'all remember yesterday, we touched a little bit on the mayor from East Palestine, Ohio. And yes, just to confirm, Donald J. Trump, in Donald J. Trump fashion, did stiff that franchise owner at that McDonald's with the bill for everything. Will they ever admit it? No. But let's take a look at how Dark Brandon handled the criticism and how changing narratives never ages well. See you in a bit.
It's been 3 weeks now since the toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, as you know. The mayor says he saw you in Ukraine, and he says it tells you he doesn't care about us. They're asking, is the president coming to Ohio? Do you have any plan to travel to Ohio, and have you talked with the mayor yet?
Let's put this in perspective. Within 2 hours of that derailment, the EPA was in there. Within 2 hours. Every major agency in the United States government that had anything to do with rail and or cleanup was there and is there. In addition to that, I've spoken at length to the congresspersons, the governors, the senators from both states of Pennsylvania and in Ohio. And I've made it clear to them anything they need is available. We'll make it available to them.
You plan to travel there, and have you talked with the mayor?
I can't recall whether I don't think I've talked to the mayor. I've talked to everyone else there, and multiple times. I've talked to both the senators, both governors. I've talked to everyone there is to talk to. And we've made it clear that everything is available.
See the president there? Do you want to see FEMA send money? I know FEMA said this is not really their purview and this isn't really in their wheelhouse. Is there something else that the federal government can provide that you want right now?
I think if the president came, it would actually just it would be more harm than good. There's a lot of security details that need to be around him, and ambulances following him and stuff. And I think it would just be a burden on our residents, honestly. If he would like to come, I mean, I'm not going to stop him, but, what we really need is we need people who are going to come here and do something for us, help us out. And if they're not, then no, we don't need anybody
With
around.
the president being in Ukraine today, did that surprise you?
Absolutely. That was the biggest slap in the face. That tells you right now he doesn't care about us. So
agreed.
He can send every agency he wants to, but I found that out this morning in one of the briefings that he was in the Ukraine giving millions of dollars away to people over there, not to us. And I'm furious.
On President's Day in our
Yeah,
country.
Yeah, President's Day in our country. He's over in Ukraine. So that tells you what kind of guy he is.
Now, when something happens in a state, okay, natural disaster, environmental disaster, things like that, it is the governor that has to declare a state of emergency. The governor. Now, the mayor can contact the governor, but chain of command. It's just like the hierarchy at your job. Last week, we covered the press conference from Governor Mike DeWine. Previously, we also covered that the mayor of East Palestine said that, he didn't want to be in a tug of war politically and didn't want to turn this into something political. I wonder what Trump promised him. Now, we know this is a city that's ripe with Trump sycophants. Norfolk is already undercutting you and your residents regarding relief. But long gone are the days where you can just tell everybody how things go. Digital footprints are real and they're forever. But speaking of changing narratives, I know you heard of the red pill movement. Now, the right wing specifically loves to pull things out of pop culture and then misrepresent them and misuse them, just like the term snowflake. Let's take a look at how the red pill movement is actually supposed to happen. Or should I say, what's wrong with the red pill movement? Because it seems like this mayor is red pilling it up. Just didn't wake him up.
What's the problem with the red pill movement?
The problem is that the red pill community has completely misunderstood the meaning behind the Matrix. Right-wingers, conservatives, misogynists have co-opted pop culture references without even understanding what they mean. Taking the red pill or being red pilled is obviously a reference to the movie The Matrix. The main character has a choice between taking the blue pill, which means they accept the oppression of the machines, or taking the red pill and waking up to the truth that they're under this oppression. The alt-right then took taking the red pill to mean something completely different. To them, taking the red pill has mean waking up to the fact that society is run by progressives and that feminism in particular is holding men back from, getting laid or something. So not only is this silly, but it completely goes against the message of the movie. The Matrix was made by two trans women, Lily and Lana Wachowski, which makes it so ironic that people use this movie to reference their own hatred towards LGBTQ people. One of the main themes of The Matrix is how people can explore and adopt new identities through a digital space. Practically every character rejects their given name and adopts a new gender-neutral one.
Zapok, which life?
The hero goes from Thomas Anderson to Neo. The main villain of the movie insists on using Neo's socially acceptable given name, Mr. Anderson, which is essentially the same as dead naming someone. Even their iconic wardrobe is androgynous. The Matrix explores the idea that we can transcend the limitations of our physical body and do impossible things with it. Originally, there was supposed to be a character called Switch that would switch genders depending on whether they were in the Matrix or the real world. The red pill itself is even analogous to hormone therapy because in the 90s, estrogen was given to trans women through a little red pill. So it's so frustrating that right-wingers will reference media that they consider too liberal and too woke to promote their own hateful ideology and completely miss the point of that media in the first place. It's scary to me that conservatives, right-wingers, misogynists, whoever will adopt popular imagery to make their more radical messaging more palatable and unassuming. They can package their very complicated and misguided messaging into something that seems very innocent precisely because it's so popular and recognizable. Everybody wants to imagine that they've taken the red pill and see the truth of things. It's a cool image from a cool movie, but if you don't look deeper into what people mean by being red pilled, you could be being led to agree with some pretty awful ideas. So I think it's important for us to remember the original intent behind the memes, the references that people are using. And it's so ironic to me that people who want to hate and oppress our communities will use media created by and for us to do so. But maybe it's because their own ideas and values would never foster an environment where we could create something original, creative, or popular enough to reference.
Now, does the red pill, blue pill meme make more sense to you? Because a lot of you all see memes or different things and you have this disconnect from pop culture. But you'll swear up and down that there's a secret meaning behind it. But when there is a casual meaning behind it that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, you completely and utterly miss it. But regarding wanting to control someone and using 1984 tactics, let's take a look at DeSantis.
Just a quick historical reminder, during World War II in Nazi Germany, Hitler never broke a single law. Thank you for coming to my TikTok.
Ron DeSantis is widely seen as somebody who is definitely running for president, especially because he's been out there the last couple of days traveling the country giving speeches, which isn't exactly something you're going to do if you're just going to sit and be governor for another 2 years or 4 years. So it's pretty obvious the man is running for president. And a lot of big money Republican donors want him to because they see he has the same policies as Trump without all of the horrible, possibly criminal baggage. But suddenly, a lot of those donors, a lot of those potential allies are now starting to express their concern about Ron DeSantis' little authoritarian power grab that's taking place down here in the state of Florida. It's not just about the banning of CRT. They're totally cool with that. It's the attempt to usurp all of this power within the state and consolidate it into DeSantis' office. It started, of course, recently with Ron DeSantis now being in charge of the special district where Walt Disney World sits. Now, DeSantis isn't going to run it, of course. That would be ridiculous. It's going to be run by several individuals who are going to be handpicked by Ron DeSantis. So he gets to pick the people that are going to run it, and if they do not run it the way he wants them to, he will simply remove them and place them with somebody who will run it the way he wants it run. So yes, he did grab up the power of that district. He recently went to war with New College, installed all these right-wing idiots onto the board, effectively destroying what that college once was. He's gone to war with AP classes and threatened to do away with AP classes here in the state of Florida, even though just a couple years ago, he said that those are great tools. He was a top AP student when he went to school, and now he wants to take it away because he's arguing with them over CRT. The state legislature down here in Florida is considering a piece of legislation that would consolidate the state's athletic board power and give it all to Ron DeSantis instead of the actual athletics board. So Ron DeSantis, would be in charge overseeing all athletics here in the state of Florida. He would get to say what they can do, what they cannot do, whether or not we have to test female athletes and find out when the last date of their menstrual cycle was. All of this is power consolidation under Ron DeSantis in the name of fighting wokeness. And the donors, the allies, they're starting to freak the hell out about it because, as they say, Republicans, we're supposed to be the free market people. We can't be interfering with corporations. We're supposed to be the small government people. We can't be consolidating all of this power into one person. Here's what they say. This is Chris Sununu, who is also a likely 2024 Republican contender. I'm a principled free market conservative. For others out there that think that the government should be penalizing your business because they disagree with you politically, that isn't very conservative. The group, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, their legal director said, quote, "You cannot censor your way to freedom of expression. You cannot trade one orthodoxy for another. What we've seen recently in Florida is a troubling willingness to do just that." And the list goes on and on. CNN actually put together a brilliant and very long article explaining all of these things that Ron DeSantis has done and will possibly do, and all of the individuals and groups that are saying, hey, whoa, we're supposed to be conservatives. You're acting more like a little dictator, which is exactly what is happening. So in his effort to appeal to the Republican base in order to win a Republican primary, Ron DeSantis might be going too extreme and pissing off any moderate voter, moderate Republican voter, that might have considered voting for him for president. And if he continues this, the entire country will eventually view this man as the little dictator, and he'll have no chance of winning another election ever again. That's not a bad thing either.
Governor Ron DeSantis has decided to take U.S. federal immigration law in his own hands and propose a brand new immigration reform package that will strip immigrant rights from undocumented individuals in the state of Florida. First order of business would be to strip a 2014 law that allows DACA applicants to accept in-state tuition for their university programs as long as they graduate from a Florida high school. Another one of DeSantis's proposals would be to not allow non-citizens from being licensed in the Florida bar as a licensed practicing attorney. The surprising thing about all of this is that DeSantis is getting support from the same people who voted to protect undocumented immigrants.
Governor Ron DeSantis has a new list targeting 14 school board members across the state ahead of the 2024 election.
That is absolutely right, and that comes from the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, who was in the meeting this week where the governor revealed this list, and now we know he is looking at 5 board members from 3 local districts. The goal is to replace these elected officials with people more in line with his 10-point education agenda. Here's a photo from the meeting where the governor met with Moms for Liberty, House Speaker Paul Renner, Education Commissioner Manny Diaz, and a few others. It was here they discussed the list of board members the governor would like to see replaced. In our area, there is Nadia Combs and Jessica Vaughn from Hillsborough. In Pinellas, there's Laura Hine and Eileen Long. And last on the list, there's Tom Edwards in Sarasota. The governor has proven powerful in getting his school board endorsements elected. He's been able to get dozens of his picks in office across the state.
Is it acceptable to send somebody to 2nd grade and have a teacher tell them that they were born in the wrong body? Is it acceptable to have teachers being involved in things like sexuality with these young kids? And I would say in Florida, 90% of parents believe that that's not appropriate. And so that's what we do. And we make sure that we're focused on academics and not all this other stuff. And then you also see battles over things like critical theory. They want to inject a very significant, I think, pernicious ideology in the schools, in the different subject matter. And we've said basically things like critical race theory are not appropriate for K through 12 schools, and so we don't allow that to be injected in. And a lot of people see some of the stuff you probably read about, and some of it is just really outrageous. What a lot of people don't realize is one of the things that flows from critical theory, and you've seen it in some of these cities, is teaching kids to have a hatred for law enforcement. They actually have things where they will say that law enforcement are gunning down racial minorities with impunity without any evidence. And that's just a slander on the people that wear the uniform. So the goal of critical theory with respect to police is to basically sow a hatred amongst very young people for those who are wearing the uniform. And in Florida, we reject that. That is totally inappropriate and that is wrong. But what we also do, in addition to say that shouldn't be taught like that or taught in schools, is we actually have programs now where school districts can work with local law enforcement agencies to let students go and observe and be a part of what's going on at our police departments and our sheriff's departments. Why is that important? Well, the kids go and they're going to see a lot of people who are conscientious. They're going to see a lot of people that are public spirited. They're going to see a lot of people who are trying to keep their community safe. And they're going to develop an appreciation for the hard work that people do, and they will develop a proper respect for what the people of law enforcement do. So we're totally different in Florida than what you see in all these other things. So woke education doesn't work. Woke indoctrination about law enforcement doesn't work, and we're happy to be leading the charge on that in the state of Florida. But if you look at all these different things that these states and these localities are doing, it all goes back to putting ideology ahead of what's right for you. And that needs to stop in this country. We got to start doing what's right for people. And I can promise you this, that in Florida, we will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Our state is where woke goes to die.
This is why I said that Ron DeSantis is far scarier and far worse than Trump. Trump will leave things as a talking point. DeSantis is full on into fascism. But did you notice how he finally admitted that CRT, critical race theory, is not taught K through 12? Now, let's not forget the entirety of 2022. It just kept being a GOP conservative talking point. We can't put it in our schools. We can't let them teach. It wasn't being taught. It's a collegiate level, a master's collegiate level, legal course. But he is really setting things up for him to basically be a Floridian dictator. What do you think he will do if he makes his way into the White House? If you thought Trump's self-coup was bad, what do you think DeSantis's will be? Now, we all know about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But did you know about the loopholes and the repercussions that come right along with it? Let's get into the loophole lawsuit first.
Have y'all seen this video from the Daily AUS?
A pregnant woman in Florida charged with second-degree murder has argued that her fetus is being wrongfully detained. 24-year-old Natalia Harrell is citing Florida's new abortion laws, which were changed after the US Supreme Court ended the country's constitutional right to an abortion last year. Her lawyer argues that her fetus is classified as a person under the state and national constitutions. And as the fetus hasn't been charged with a crime, they say it's human rights that have been, quote, clearly violated and should be removed from prison immediately. Abortion is banned in Florida after a fetus reaches 15 weeks of gestation, except in the case of a medical emergency.
Can I just say, her lawyer is outstanding. Whatever they're currently being paid, it ain't enough. I want to say back in late August, early September, I made a video about this woman down in Texas who was driving in an HOV lane, and she was like 6-7 months pregnant. Like, she was pretty pregnant, and a cop pulled her over, was writing her a ticket, but she argued that because of the new abortion laws, her fetus should count as a passenger in the vehicle. And from my point of view, I completely agree. States cannot have it both ways. A fetus can not only have human rights as it pertains to an abortion, or alternatively, say you were driving, you were being negligent, you hit a pregnant woman, she and her baby lose their life, you would be charged with both deaths. You can't logically argue that a fetus only matters in this case, but in this case, and that case, it's a non-factor. That's not fair. That doesn't make any sense. From my point of view, that baby's being illegally detained. Y'all better free that fetus or there's a lawsuit to be. In all seriousness, do I think this argument's gonna work? Probably not, nor should it, because the woman's being charged with murder. If this were like petty theft, I'd be pounding the table for this to work, but given that it's literally for murder, in the words of the great Randy Jackson, it's a no for me, dog. I like where her lawyer's head's at, though. That's some big brain thinking. I do think this is something that does need addressing, because I do agree that if that baby has rights, you are wrongfully detaining it. But as it pertains to a murder trial, I'd rather that not work, you know what I'm saying?
But here's the thing. They put it in motion. They said, now all of a sudden, although it goes after their handy dandy Sky Daddy book, that life begins at the first breath, they're now saying life begins at conception. So if life begins at conception, habeas corpus. Habeas corpus. So now let's look at the repercussions of overturning Roe v. Wade.
You guys were warned. You were warned that by banning abortions, you're going to bottleneck OBGYNs in your state because they can't get residencies. They won't be able to finish residency there, and you won't get any doctors. Because abortion care is healthcare, and it's required to finish your OBGYN residency. And if people can't finish their OBGYN residency in your state, are you going to get OBGYNs? No. And this is what happens. You get a maternity care desert.
This is one of those things where it's be careful what you wish for, you know? And for those of you who don't have any idea on what's going on, there's a large exodus of OBGYNs that do not want to practice in red states. Because again, abortion is part of healthcare. And when you're doing a residency, you have to be educated on the topic. But they can't finish in these states. I mean, it's wild. And also, even the OBGYNs who are still practicing don't want to do it either because they're not interested in going to jail because of the practice of medicine. And then I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene the other day saying, well, we need to separate from these fucking Democrats and we need to have our own country and whatnot. I'll let him. Oh my fucking God. The poorest states in the United States are all red. You know, she doesn't realize that. But even if we let them have their own country, what do you think it's going to fucking happen? You know, first off, OBGYNs and professionals in medicine, most of them are going to fucking leave. Then you have people like lawyers who are not interested in prosecuting women for the supposed crime of having an abortion, or prosecuting teachers for bringing in a book that they're not approved of bringing. Then you have engineers who want no responsibility for deregulation, and then they're building a train, you know, but they don't put safety measures in it because the Republicans deregulated everything, and you don't need to be as methodical with your construction and your buildings and your codes and all that bullshit. They're like, fuck this. I don't want to get sued when this train gets derailed or this fucking building collapses on top of people's head. Those people are leaving too. Republicans don't understand that their version of utopia, it's mindless. It's going back to the 1800s, putting a bunch of people in jail for no reason. It's basically the Taliban. And what's going to happen eventually is that you're going to have a bunch of people, probably women, that are just asking to leave and they won't let them. And then they're just going to have to go quietly into the night, escaping through a fucking wall or a border. Just like The Handmaid's Tale. I don't think people realize how bad it is. But, you know, if they want to have it that way, let them. I don't give a shit. They could all implode in their own fucking space for all I care. Because Republican women, let me tell you something. We are trying to save you, but you don't want to be saved. You think you are living the life over there with those yahoos. Because your men don't give a shit. All they want to do is trick you into thinking that you're better off with them. And you are not. You are in for a rude fucking awakening. But, you know, you want to separate from Democratic states, fucking do it. My fucking God. You have no idea what you're asking for. Que tenga buen día.
Now, keep in mind, there are certain programs that are having to change the wording so that future doctors can complete all of their clinicals. But that wordplay, will it fly? Who knows? And if you want to know my thoughts regarding this national divorce thing, once again, check the links in the description of this video. Now, the big story over the weekend is the creator of Dilbert. Let's go into his words and who he incorrectly quoted. And then we'll discuss some things. Before we continue, let me just give you a little bit of context. He started off saying that he previously identified as Black and he didn't realize he had joined a hate group. So he just wanted to formally let everyone know that he was now re-identifying as white, just so you have a clear picture. And yes, he spent the weekend doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this. But let us continue. Gonna pause again. Now, did you catch that he said that he's been helping Black Americans all his life? Let's rewind a little bit. Some of you may remember that Dilbert was once an animated series that came on syndicated television. It was canceled. When it was canceled, he blamed Black people. He said that it was canceled because he was white. I compel you to look up if there was ever a Black person to be featured in his comic strip, and if so, how many years did it take for that to occur? But let's continue. Okay, it's not playing. That's weird. Could you hear it? Because it was playing on my end. You know what? I will drop it in the comments because it was playing on my end. My apologies. Okay, we will go to the next portion.
I don't get it. I don't understand what has emboldened people so much that they think saying, as the popular quote goes, the quiet part out loud is okay. So, hundreds of newspapers have dropped the Dilbert comic strip after a tirade of racist comments from the creator, Scott Adams. Now, I'm sure that he'll come out in a week or a month or tomorrow or whenever the case is and apologize for these terrible comments that he, for whatever reason, felt at the time was okay to say. He's called Black Americans a hate group, suggesting white people should get the hell away from them. There is more context to this. It came after Scott Adams, behind Dilbert, effectively encouraged segregation in a shocking rant on YouTube. His comments came in response from a poll from the conservative firm Rasmussen reports that 53% of Black Americans agreed with the statement, "It's okay to be white." then it just really goes off the rails. This was from a 4chan group in 2017. His thought was if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group, Adams said on Wednesday on his YouTube show Real Coffee with Scott Adams. Then he continues on, I don't want anything to do with them, Adams added, and I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the F away, because there is no fixing this. Adams has since said on Twitter that he was only advising people to avoid hate. What? In all honesty, though, I am so over this. I would not be surprised if he then went to Twitter again and said, cancel culture got me because I said my opinion. It's consequence culture. You say something stupid and misinformed, you pay the price. It's as simple as that. But
that wasn't stupid and misinformed. It was completely bigoted, filled with racism. Completely. I'm pretty sure he will surface again on Twitter because, of course, Elon Musk is supporting him and is basically the only person tweeting at him in support. Which, of course, what else would you expect from an apartheid baby from South Africa? Dripping in privilege. He's lost a book deal. His publishers pulled out. So the book that was supposed to come out, I believe, this fall is not going to. Like I said before, he previously blamed the Black community for his show being canceled. And saying the quiet part out loud, they've traditionally said the quiet part out loud. With Black codes, Jim Crow, war on drugs, law and order. All lives matter. Blue lives matter. They let us know every single day how they feel. They're accustomed to it. That's why they huff and puff when we don't move out of their way. This is why they huff and puff and call us lazy, because our labor is no longer free. Once again, let me remind you to check out the links in the description of this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and also click the bell so that you can be alerted to all upcoming videos, news updates, all of that. I will see you all tomorrow. And do not forget, Tastic Tuesdays will drop before Talk About It Tuesday tomorrow. And we will get into learning through Black literature, the introduction tomorrow for the Black history of the White House. And as always, each one reach one, each one teach one. Enjoy this final nugget of Black History Month factoids.
This is the woman that fought for desegregation in the New York City rapid transit system, Elizabeth Jennings Graham. Here's more from Polly of the New York Transit Museum.
She was an African-American woman in the 1850s, right. 1854, who was thrown off of a horse car, which was, her bus of the day, and she was heading for church, and a police officer and the conductor threw her off because it didn't have a sign saying colored people allowed. But she and a group of sort of prominent African Americans in the community sued the company, and they won their case in court, and that led to desegregated public transportation in New York by 1873.
Oh, that's great.
Which is much sooner than, of course, the rest of the country. And we like to sort of say that she did all of this 100 years before Rosa Parks.
Right.
So we've kind of made it, that's a part of our mission in the Ed Department, is to tell Elizabeth's story. Ramona portrayed Elizabeth for a family program that we had a few years ago.
February.
Yeah, but we love to, as often as we can tell that story. It's a common question, was the subway ever segregated, and so that's our opportunity to kind of talk about her.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you're keeping her memory alive.
Yeah.